Good morning. Good morning, everyone. This is Marie Rogers with Remnant Mentality Ministries. And today I have my son, Andre Rogers, that will be joining us today for youth service on Remnant Mentality Ministries. So how is everyone? We ready to learn a little bit today? Look, I know for the last couple of weeks, we've been going over Genesis. And last week, Carolyn and her husband, Gary Gamble, they went on and they talked to you a lot about Genesis chapter 3 and how even Adam and Eve, they sinned and what they did, they taking a fruit from the forbidden tree. About all the trees that were out there, anything that God said, anything. The one thing he told them not to do. And I know Carolyn and Gary, they stressed this last week. They said, do not touch the tree. And guess what they did? It wasn't even like they brushed up against it. They went and Eve went and she got some fruit from it. She touched it. So we learned that from that point, that's when sin entered the world, right? And so we're going to talk about today what happens when sin enters the world, right? Because it's not it's not really bright. It's not a lot of good stuff that happens. And so we have to know what we can do to counter those things. So today, like I said, we're going to go over chapter 4 in Genesis, right? And in this chapter, we learn about Adam and Eve and how they have a baby, right? And even though Adam and Eve sinned, and most people may say that it was more so Eve because she was the one that kind of took the fruit and convinced Adam to have some. They both sinned, but God still loved them. He still forgave them. It's just that things were a little different. He was very disappointed in him. He didn't hate him. He wasn't mad. He was disappointed in them. And some things have to change. And it's just like if we disappoint our parents, we're all excited about something, about going somewhere. And all of a sudden we do something wrong. And guess what? We may not get to go anymore, right? And so that's it's not on the same scale, but we just want to let you know that God still loved Adam and Eve, even though they sinned. And so much so that he blessed Adam and Eve with a son. And the first son's name was Cain. And for Eve said that she's gotten a man from the Lord. That's what she believes when Cain was born. God eventually blessed him again with another baby boy named Abel. And they loved both of them. But, for Eve, Cain was her firstborn. She loved them, and they believe like this is what God wants for me to have, who he wants me to have. Mm-hmm. Right. So she has Cain and she has Abel. And in this chapter, it tells us a little bit about what Cain and Abel had to do, what their duties were. And in this particular case, Cain was in charge of the land, right? He was a tiller. And Abel was in charge of the animals back then. And so in today's term, Cain would be the person that takes care of all the land. Let's say if you have a farm, right? He takes care of all the land, all the ground, make sure everything's good, it's ready to feed, and the animals have what they need. It looks nice. All of that stuff is what Cain was in charge of. And Abel was the person that took care of the animals, right? Both jobs were needed. You had to have people to do both of them in order to work. You couldn't have the animals and then knock the land the land not taken care of, and vice versa. So both of them were important jobs. And Cain and Abel did what they were supposed to do with the duties that they actually had. And that part was fine, right? That wasn't the problem. The problem came in at some point after, right? Did you want to talk anything about that, or
no? So you're gonna hear what happens between Cain and Abel, but just to kind of reiterate, like both jobs are really important. So don't ever when you read this story, I think some people think like, oh, Abel's job is more important, so that's why some good things happened for him from the Lord, and Cain's job wasn't as important. They're both equally important. It's just a reaction and how they offered up their sacrifices, which was a little bit different. And that's the reaction that they got from the Lord.
Right. So speaking of sacrifice, we're going to talk about at some point they had to sacrifice. Right. And so back then, they sacrificed what they had, animals, in this case, the land, when we talk about Cain and Abel. So the sacrifice then would be like our offering today. If you think about when you go to church, then when they pass the till around and we have to give change or money in there, that's what it would equate to today as our offering. So here's what ended up happening. Abel, he offered like his best, the first loin, right? He offered to God. And it was accepted and it was respected because it was the first and the best. Didn't think about it. He offered it up. Cain, on the other hand, he had all the land. But what did Cain do? Cain just, I offered up some land. I'll just go back. It's almost like he just went through and kind of picked some apart and just like, here, this is what I have for you. And Cain did it. His was, just so you know, God did not accept his offering. He did not respect them because Abel's was from the heart, right? Abel's offering or his sacrifice was from the heart. He didn't think about what it was. Hey, I got to give a sacrifice. I'm giving God my best. I'm giving my first. I'm giving him my best. And like we said, if you relate this to his mom, right, to Eve, her best was Cain, right? That was her first one. And so in our case, in this particular case, Abel gave his best and he gave his first. Cain just kind of gave it as an act because he was supposed to give it. So he just provided the service of giving just so he can say he gave, which we've done that. I know we've done that as a kid. Just to say we gave, we decided not to give our best. And I know my son can talk a little bit about that because I know we've had some issues growing up, but then also he can talk about even as he was a young adult, some of the things that he went through with this.
Yeah. And I think where it comes from for me was I didn't have the faith that I probably should have had in God. And so what we used to do is my wife and I, we would go through our drawers and we find like loose change or loose dollars. And we put that in at church in the offering bucket. And we say, hey, man, like that's what we have today, God. And we did that because we didn't believe that if we really gave God our first 10%, like he asked, like we were called to do, that we could pay all our bills and we can provide for our family. So our faith wasn't in the Lord that he would bless us and he would take care of us and that he would provide for us if we would give him our first 10%. So we really struggled with that for a long time. And you saw it from Cain. Cain probably was like, man, I want to keep this harvest to myself. I don't want to give God the best of this harvest. But Abel, on the other hand, he gave him the fat. Like the fat was a luxury part of the lamb back then. It was like a sweet smelling aroma to the Lord. So it's really important to note that the difference between Abel and Cain here was the way they offered. Was it from the heart? Was it was the best, the firstborn, or was it the leftovers? And that, like, I've been in this spot before. Like I said, like I gave God our leftovers and I didn't really see a lot of stuff changing in my life until I started giving him the first and the best.
Right. And as kids, if you can really equate this to, we all have, as kids, you have these little toys, nice toys, these toys that you just love, right? And you want to hold on to all of them. And if anybody asks for it, even, whether it's your friend, whether it's your brother, your sister, if somebody asks just to donate it, you just kind of take all of it. You just want everything. You don't want to give anything away, even though you have so much, right? And so that's how Cain was. He had so much, and he just wanted to, skim a little bit, pick and choose, who gets what kind of the scraps. And it's almost like, you think about it, kids, if you had these little toy cars, or these remote cars and nice and neat, and let's say you got one and you broke it and you hide it from your mom and dad, you put it in that dresser, right? And so sitting up in there now, mom and dad, and I'll tell you this because I used to have to tell my kids this as when they were children. They had toys and stuffed animals and they would always want more. We finally got to the point and say, no, like you don't need them. We're going to donate and we're going to give them away. So start picking. We would have to give them days. This is going to be the day. So by this day, pick out the stuff that we're going to get rid of. And we never said give your best or give your worst. We just said give, because at that point we were just trying to teach them to give, right? But if you have, back to the story, as far as this little toy car, you stuffed it, you broke it, you didn't tell mom and dad, you stuffed it into your dresser drawer, and it's sitting there. Now mom and dad says, hey, it's time to donate, or your best friend or one of your friends come over and say, hey, I broke my car. You have anything I can play with? And what do? Instead of sharing with them, instead of giving them something good that's useful, even if it means something to us, what do? We go digging in that drawer, right? Like digging for that change in a drawer, just to say we gave, just to say we shared. And we don't want to do that. You know, we have to remember with God deserves our best. He wants our best. And we don't want to take away from what we give him and then in return ask for more, keep asking for more. We don't want to do that, right? So just think about that when you have your little toys. Think about it when, you know, you get a little bit of money. You know, I always tell my kids, if you get some money, you save some, right? You save half, you save X amount. You just don't want to just use it all, just like it's going to keep coming to you. So we want to remember that. But what ended up happening with Cain and Abel with this sacrifice, like I said, God accepted and respected Abel's sacrifice. Well, that kind of annoyed Cain a little bit. He was a little upset, start to get jealous and enraged with the fact that, hey, I gave also. What do you mean you don't love me? I don't get the same feeling of love. You know, I feel dejected, you know, and he has this conversation with them, and you know, he's trying to wonder, like, God, what did I do? What did I do wrong? And God has to basically tell him, look, well, did you give? Did you give with all your heart? You know, we want to be cheerful givers. We don't want to complain when we have to give. You know, like my son was saying, when we go to give our 10%, just know how we got it. We didn't do it on our own. Give it back. It's going to come back to you tenfold, right? Give the 10% as much as you can. And sometimes you don't have that much. Maybe it may not be in money. Maybe it may be in time. It may be in something else that you have. But the point is to always give your best, right? So he becomes enraged with God. And then his rage is so bad and it starts to linger on for so much, he concocts this plan. He's like, I'll tell you how we're going to fix this, right? Because he's mad now. He's like, I'm tired of this. We both do the same thing. We're out here sweating, doing all this work. Mom and dad, they're okay with it. How's God upset with me? And I'm feeling like I'm being punished for it. So he says, I'll tell you what. We're going to get Abel out here and we're going to have a little talk. So this is what he convinces Abel to do.
Yeah, so he leads him out into the middle of the land. And I bet you he's probably trying to talk to him and what, like, he wants to hang out with him. And instead, he kills his little brother. Like, he does the unthinkable. He kills his little brother. And as he's walking back, right, he gets back and God asks him, he says, hey, where's your brother at? And I'm sure we've all been in the place where we do something bad to our little brother or little sister, and our parents go, hey, where's your brother at? Where's your sibling at? And man, Cain's response, he's so annoyed, he's so sarcastic at this point. He looks back at God and he says, am I brother's keeper? And unbelievable. And think about how much audacity it takes to respond to God that way. And God's response wasn't, yeah, you are. He says, what have you done? So God knows. God has an understanding of what just happened. He says, you killed your brother. And God, at this point, he has to punish him, right? He has to. Yeah. He did something wrong, right? And Cain deserves the punishment. So God has to punish him at this point. He still loves him. And the important thing here is, like, God still loves you no matter what sin you commit. He loves you, but he hates the sin. And there's time for punishment. And so God tells him, hey man, like the land you have right now, I can't allow you to grow any crops on it anymore. I'm gonna have to send you off like a wanderer, and you're gonna become homeless. And this makes Cain even more mad, and it makes him even more dejected. He says, like, I can't even bear this punishment. Like, you're gonna make me a homeless wanderer, and somebody's gonna kill me while I'm out there. And God says, not today. That's not gonna happen. He says, I will punish the next person 7 times more if he hurts you. So again, there's God's love for Cain so much that he's going to protect him. Even though he sinned, he killed his brother. he's still protecting him and telling him, like, man, no one's going to kill you. I'll punish that person. I'll put a mark on your head so everyone knows that they can't kill you.
Yeah. And so we want to make sure with that we know, like we've been talking about, and as we can see with Cain and Abel, and you've seen in the last definitely the last chapter with Adam and Eve, the sin. And for us that don't know what the sin is, it's doing something bad, right? I mean, like worse than bad. And so we just want to make sure that we're not going to do everything right, and we're not perfect, but we just want to make sure when we make a mistake, when we hurt somebody, we do something wrong, we got to go to that person and say sorry. We definitely have to go to God and say sorry, but don't let what you feel like if you feel like God doesn't love you or he's never going to forgive you, which isn't true. Just so you know, if you go to him and you say sorry for what you've done and what you've thought, because sometimes we think bad things also, right? But he's going to forgive you. But the key here is not to get so enraged that you start to punish. You take methods into your own hand, right? And you start to punish other people. Definitely don't want to hurt someone. We don't want to do like Cain did. Okay? We don't want to kill our brother or our sister because we think God doesn't love us anymore, or we've done something so bad that he can't forgive us. We don't want to do that. So this is hopefully, you're getting something out of this. It's a good lesson to know that God still loves us. And everyone has different things that we have to do. And the main thing, like we said, is you always want to make sure you give your first and your best to God. Always, right? Be a cheerful giver. So if someone asks for something, if you're going to give and be cheerful. Don't even think about it. Don't say, oh man, you're asking me again. Oh, and if I give this to him, I won't have this. And how am I going to buy my toy? Or don't worry about that. Be a cheerful giver. If you're going to give. If you're not going to give, then that's something else that's going to get dealt with. But don't give and be upset about it or talk about the person or be mad, over so long. And then you see that person has something. Now you want to go get it, right? Because we've done that sometimes too, right? As kids, somebody asks us for a little bit of money, a little bit of that change, and we give it to them. And now we see that they got new shoes. They went and got some food or whatever. We ask for it and they say no. So now we're mad and we want to do something. We don't want to do that. We don't want to be like Cain in this situation. And there's some reasons why, as we go through further in the chapters of Genesis, we're going to find out why some of those things happened to Cain, why he was like that, how God talked to Adam and Eve about what may happen to their kids. We're going to learn that. But for us, for kids, we just want to make sure that you understand that God loves you and, always do the right thing. Listen, even with the sin from Adam and Eve in this chapter, it also talks about his love and his compassion, his forgiveness for Eve, right? He blessed Adam and Eve with another child. The child's name is Seth. And we're going to go further into the chapter and it's going to talk about Seth, and we're going to learn, what he did and some of the important roles that he played also in that time frame, for Adam, for both Adam and Eve, and also for Cain. Sometimes and I think like with Cain, can you imagine, he felt like the pain was too much for him to bear. So the easy thing for him probably, if he was no longer here, we'll say that, right? He probably felt like that, but he has to live with that every day. He has to live with the thing that, he hurt his brother. He killed his brother. He ashamed his parents. He upset God. Those things are things that you don't want to carry with your kids. No. You don't want to do that because that's tough when every day, you did something wrong. And even though we tell you that God forgives you, you don't feel that you're forgiven, or you don't feel like there's anything that you can do to overcome that, to be better. And there is. So just know that. Okay. I mean, I think this was a good lesson about not just Cain and Abel, but siblings, brothers and sisters. It could be duties that you have that are split out, things that you think may be more important. But we definitely want to say, make sure some of the lessons that we're taught that we should get from this is be a cheerful giver. Always, 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 you want to give God your first and your best. Always, no matter what. And then
God loves us, right? Again, like God loves us but hates the sin. I'll add this too. that Cain was blessed even after this. So he goes and he settles in a different town, and he gets married and he has a wife and they have kids. And so we think like that was the end of the road for Cain, but God's love was still over him. His protection was still over him. And he still provided him with descendants and with kids who had kids, and with the bloodline too. So never give up on God, whether you think he punished you rightfully or wrongfully. Never give up on God if you think he's mad at you or he's not mad at you. He still is going to use you. He still has a plan for you.
Yeah, I think that's good. So we definitely hope and pray that, you got something out of this kid, something that you can share, maybe something that you can just take with you and maybe go back and tell your friends or tell your parents and say, hey, I learned something, and just share the information with you. But we do thank you for just, taking some time out of your day. I know it's early morning, taking some time out to listen to the message for us today. Okay. And with that, we just say, have a wonderful, blessed day in the Lord. Spend some time with God. And we'll see you next week as we're going to go into Genesis chapter 5. We're going to learn just a little bit more about what God has in store for us. Okay. Have a good evening.